A few more things to put on to the 1970 CT70 bike. I have a universal wiring harness here that we need to take apart and clean up a bit, since we're not going to be running turn signals or a few of the other accessories we did on the 1976 bike. I have this fuel tank kit that I got from Trail Buddy. It includes the fuel tank, the hoses, the mounting brackets, so it should be the complete package. And then I also have this reproduction seat for the bike. So we'll get all of these apart and take a look at them. But first we'll start off with the wiring harness, since that needs to be in before we start putting in the fuel tank. So here's the wiring harness. It's the TB422 wiring harness from Trail Buddy. It's a universal 12 volt harness. So it's not designed just for the CT70, but for all of the different Chinese 12 volt motors. It does come with the legend for which wire is designed for which item, so we can also figure out which ones we want to pull out, since I don't want this all of these wires in here. I used the same harness for the 76 build and everything worked well. One thing I didn't like is it has this big plastic casing that's supposed to come along the side of the bike, and it doesn't look very good. So we're going to do something a little cleaner for the portion of the wires that come out from the side of the frame and into the headlight bucket. So first thing I'm going to do is take off all of this tape, lay it out, and then we'll start looking at what we do and don't need before we put it all back together. I was watching a Mini Bike Mike video the other day where he was showing one of the new wiring harnesses that are going to be offered from Trail Buddy that actually is already pared down, so it doesn't have all the accessories. I got real excited and I thought, oh well, I'm going to return this and pick that up, but it sounds like he was just given a demo unit and that it likely wouldn't be available till later next year. So it's not too much trouble to just rebuild this one the way that I wanted, but just keep an eye out on Trail Buddy for potentially a much simplified universal 12 volt wiring harness, so that you don't have to go through the process of cleaning this up if you want to have it clean on your bike. We could just throw this on the bike as is and it would be fine. All of these wires here in this bundle take up quite a bit of space in the headlight bucket though, and in the 76 bike everything was just barely jammed in, so if possible I'd like to have all of the wiring a little bit cleaner. And then there's other wiring like this plug here that I don't think lines up with the 12 volt key that I have, and a few of these other ones that would like to clean up anyway. So anyway, I'll post a link to Mini Bike Mike's video on the Trail Buddy simplified 12 volt wiring harness that he got a chance to take a look at. But in the meanwhile, we'll go ahead and just keep taking all of this tape off so that we can clean this one up ourselves. Okay, here's the trimmed down version of my wiring harness now. Actually, let me start here. This is the pile of wires that I pulled out. So there was I think there was provisions for 2 batteries. Definitely don't need that. The orange and the blue are the turn signals. The yellow with the red stripe is the starter motor, which this bike doesn't have. I believe the gray and black, this was for the flasher relay, which isn't required on this bike since I don't have turn signals. I'm not sure what the yellow and white, there was a couple of other ones that were just loops. But anyway, so these were all the things that I pulled off. So you can see then the strand that's going to actually run from the outside of the bike is only about 6 wires. So a much cleaner loom that's going to come out between the frame back into the headlight bucket. I probably also don't need as many grounds as is in this bundle now. I might clean it up a bit, but I'm not as worried about that. Here's the ignition that I bought. The plug on it though, and the plug on this wiring harness are the same. They're both the males, so I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. I think I'll probably just do banana plugs on both sides so that I can connect those up. I seem to remember for the motor mount that a few of these last time also didn't line up correctly, that some needed to be changed from male to female. So I can't remember exactly what those are. I'll get those though reset up. And I believe that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and get these retaped and onto the bike. All right, and here's the finished wiring harness. I used a tubing for the first part of the wire loom that's going to go again on the outside of the bike, and then just cover that in electrical tape so that it's clean. For the ignition system, I went ahead and just put bullet connectors both on the wiring harness as well as the key ignition, just female on this side and male on this side. It's color coded, so that's easy enough. Connectors that it came with, both sides were male, so needed to do something, and this was the easiest solution. And then taped up the rest of it, so a lot slimmer than it was initially, and we're going to go ahead and get this on the bike. Here's the wiring harness alongside the bike before it goes in. I also did check the wiring harness engine plugs. All of them actually do line up, the males to female. All the colors go to the colors that correspond, with the exception of the neutral indicator light off of the life and motor is this green with red stripe, and on the harness that I'm using, it's green with a white stripe. And the flywheel pulse pickup off of the motor is a blue with white stripe, and off of the harness that I'm using is red with a white stripe. So here I have the ignition connections. I put the switch back in to the frame here, and are just matching up the colors on these bullet connectors that I added. So green to green. So this gas can kit looks really good. It comes with all the parts you need. The only thing I've run into a problem with, though, is the rubber brackets that are supposed to hold the sides of the gas tank, or not have it bounce around inside the engine bay here. The original ones clamp all the way around the sides here. This obviously isn't wide enough to do that, so I think I'm just going to cut part of this off and glue it onto the sides. It's not too functional of a part, other than making sure that it's a buffer in between the gas tank and the rails here that hold it up, so that I guess you can limit vibrations. But other than that, the rest of the kit looks pretty good. It also comes with the tank selector here. This tank has two inlets, one for the main and one for the reserve. This allows you to switch between the two. On the other bike and on this one too, I'm actually just going to mount it up to the extra hole that's right here that was designed to hold the initial air filter. I don't need it because I've got this aftermarket air filter on the life and motor, but it makes for a good mounting point and easy to select either main tank, reserve tank, or turn it off altogether if you're going to put it in the back of a truck. All right, I got the gas tank slid in, and the bracket that goes on top. It also comes with a rubber grommet that goes here in between the gas tank and the gas cap. But everything slid in pretty smoothly. This tank also came with the rubber grommet that goes on the front, so everything's in there pretty tight. You can just barely see down here where I just cut those rubber pieces to fit to provide support on the sides, but everything is nice and tight. So next up, I have the reproduction seat here. This actually came with the mounting bracket to connect it to the bike, so it's just a matter of getting the bolts down there, and then the seat will be on. And you can see down here I have the main and reserve tubes that I need to then hook up to the fuel selector and then directly into the carburetor. And I think that's it. At that point, I believe I should be able to start the bike. So I'll get these things hooked in, and we'll try to turn it over. So this is finally starting to look like a bike. I got all the fuel lines hooked up. This is the reserve on the top and the primary on the bottom, and I have this valve switch here. I think right now it's set to the main, although I probably should have it on the reserve since there's not too much fuel in the tank. But I have the spark plug hooked up. The new seat looks really nice. So if you come around to the other side here, you can see the rest of the fuel situation. The kit did come with fuel filters, so I will be adding an inline fuel filter. Right now, though, I'm just trying to make sure that everything works. I tested to make sure that I have spark by just grounding a spark plug to the engine, making sure that I saw something when I kicked it over. So let's go ahead and start it up. I've got fuel through the lines, and I have run this engine before, so my guess is it's going to start pretty quickly. Without an exhaust, though, it's probably also going to be pretty loud, so I'm going to go ahead and put some earphones on first. Neutral. All right, thank you very much for watching. Only a few more things to put on the bike. I need the rear taillight housing and the taillight. I don't know if I'm going to do a battery or not, but if I do, that's something that I need to add to the list. Still need to integrate the horn. The front headlight bucket still isn't set up. There's just the wires spewing out the front of it here, but need to get all of those connected and hooked up. The bike is really close to being finished. Anyway, really appreciate everyone following along on this build. Stay tuned for the last couple of videos, and thank you for watching.